Hello, my name is Ayo, and today I'll be discussing delusion and pathological anxiety. Delusion and pathological anxiety are maladaptivities that can be found in our people. What is delusion? Delusion is when a person believes something and keeps and defends that belief even though there is evidence that the belief that they hold is wrong and that it does not fit into reality. The person continues to hold on to that belief even though there is evidence right in front of them that says otherwise, and they also continue to have that belief even if bad things are happening to them because of the belief that they hold. Europeans have set up their society in a way that leads African people into delusion. They do this by spreading false ideas about our history and culture and creating lies and presenting them as truth. Delusion stems from fear. If someone is holding on to and defend a false belief, it is because something bad happened in the past, or that person is scared of something bad happening if they let go of that belief. White supremacy relies on African people accepting the lies that Europeans tell. Fantasy is also a part of delusion. Fantasy is wanting something that you cannot have in reality, but doing things that might get you what you want, even though it is not possible. Fantasy is used as an escape for stress and frustration, and eases the stress and frustration by creating an imaginary and easier achievement to help the person feel better. The imaginary achievements then are substituted for achieving goals that are harder in real life. Fantasy can be self defeating, maladaptive, and self destructive if used in this way. Examples of myself. I see delusion in myself um, because I feel safe in the US. Um, and even though there is a whole bunch of evidence that says that the United States is not safe for me, for African people, at all. And I am deluding myself because I'm accepting the illusion that the Europeans are giving me, which is if you just fall in line, then the bad things won't happen to you. This illusion comes into play when, let's say, police officers are attacking our people. Um, One of the things that comes to mind is uh if well, if that person wasn't wearing a hood too far over his face, then maybe he wouldn't get attacked. And I would never do that, so I'm fine. Um, an example of delusion in my family would be when my mother was giving birth to me, she thought that the hospital, she strongly believed that the hospital would help her have a vaginal birth. Even though studied the rates of she studied the statistics and found out that the rates of cesareans in hospitals are high and that the rates of cesareans for African women are higher than that. And then the rates of cesareans for African women who had white doctors are even higher than that. Um, and she continued to have this belief that they would help her have a vaginal birth, even as they weren't even following her instructions like she would. One of the instructions that she gave was to use a specific needle for an IV, and she they doctors continued to ignore her and use all these other types of needles before they ended up following her instructions, and they ended up poking her a lot of times until they got it right. And they didn't follow a whole bunch of other instructions before and after that. And once my mother accepted that she couldn't control the doctors and make them help her have a vaginal birth instead of a C-section, it was already too late, and they had done a whole bunch of stuff to prepare her for a C-section, or to make it seem like she had no choice but to have a C-section. An example of delusion in our people would be when some of our people believe that they can change Europeans and teach them to live in harmony with us, or to be better. And some of our people continue to believe this, even though there is a lot of evidence now and historically that no matter how much we teach them or try to uh, coexist with them, they will always attack us and try to dominate over us. Why should we heal from delusion? We should heal from delusion. One, because if we heal from delusion, we'll be able to clearly see what we need to do to be able to get Europeans off our backs. We'll stop viewing our people in a bad way. For example, Africans in the United States are told and sometimes continue to believe that Africans in Africa don't like them. And even if they go to Africa and see that the people are nice to them, uh, they still believe that there's some type of hate there. Um, we should also heal from delusion so that we can recognize when we're uh, accepting the illusion that the Europeans are giving, and stop ourselves from accepting that illusion. And we can should also heal from delusion so that we can address the things that were making us accept the illusions in the first place. How can we heal from delusion? We can heal from delusion by addressing our feelings and by believing in ourselves and in our people, and we can believing that what our people are saying, or the information that our people are giving is better than the information that Europeans are giving, or the solutions that our people are giving are better than the solutions that Europeans are giving. How I am healing from delusion. I'm healing from delusion by reminding myself of the dangers in the US, and reminding myself that those dangers don't apply to Tanzania um basically at all, and reminding myself of the how good that actually is. What is pathological anxiety? Pathological anxiety is when a person has fears and anxieties that are way out of proportion to the actual dangers posed by any real danger or threat, or when a person fears something due to an overestimation of the threat. It is also when a person has so much anxiety to the point where they feel the need to deny or change the part of reality that houses the particular thing that the person is scared of. If a person is overestimating the threat of a danger or has a fear that is out of proportion, that person will start to participate in self-deceptive, escapist, and avoidance behavior, and or start to do self-harming things. Part of their personal growth will be blocked or stunned as well. Europeans use pathological anxiety to intimidate us and therefore continue to be in control. There are anxieties that have been induced into African people and made to seem normal. In order for white supremacy to continue to be, African people have to be mostly motivated by the part of anxiety that makes you want to avoid things. Example in myself. An example of pathological anxiety in myself is thinking that I have to dress and speak in a certain way so that I will not be mistreated, and so that my temporary guardian will help me so that I won't be alone, not knowing what to do and just wandering the earth with no chance of seeing my family again. I feel this anxiety when I fly by myself, and the growth that is stunted is my ability to believe that I can figure things out on my own, and my ability to believe that the tools I have will help me figure difficult situations out. Um the need to be acceptable by Europeans stems from my great grandmother on my mom's side of the family. Um, Two of my family members, a husband and a wife, had a store, and the Europeans in that area didn't like that. So one night they came and they locked both of them in the freezer and then burned their store down. And shortly after that, my great grandmother moved her and her family to Pittsburgh. And once they got there, she decided that in order for them to be safe, they had to dress in a way and speak in a way that was acceptable to the Europeans, and therefore would be the one of the determining factors of their survival. An example of pathological anxiety is in my family is with my mother and public restrooms. My mother avoids or was avoiding public restrooms um because of their she contamination. She would see them as contaminated and dirty and just a place where she didn't feel comfortable in being. But more than uncomfortable, just like she was extremely scared to go in them. And this stems from a mixture of my great grandmother and grandmother. Um, my great grandmother made sure that her children defecated daily, and she had a big thing about cleanliness of bowels. Um, and that was mixed with my grandmother, my mother's mother, um, and her thing about having clean bathrooms. My mother told me that if they were on a plane, she would clean the stall on the plane with like the paper towels and soap. And sometimes she'd either wipe down the floor with a paper towel and her foot, and then she would use the restroom. And there was also mixed with this thing that both my grandmother and my great grandmother had about using the restrooms at home. My mother thinks that comes from the fact that back in the day, when you went downtown or went certain places, there weren't restrooms for African people to use. And if there were, they weren't necessarily cleaned or in a state where they could be cleaned well. And so with that came restrooms outside weren't clean. And so she got that all restrooms outside weren't clean, and she didn't want to be near them like at all. And she made sure that me and my brother didn't have that. And she now is starting to reassociate um the state of bathrooms, and being like, instead if she sees a crack in like a tile, she's trying to tell herself that um the bathroom isn't like contaminated because they're in Tanzania and it's safe. Um, Examples of pathological anxiety in our people. Um, our people feel like, or some of our people feel like they have to work for European people, and be in their system in order to be somebody and make money and be successful in life. Because that's what Europeans tell them to do. That's their script. They tell you that you have to follow these steps in order to be successful. And The overestimation of the danger comes in when our people think that if they don't follow the script, then all of a sudden they're not going to be able to make money and then they'll be homeless and they won't, they'll never be able to find another way to take care of themselves, even though that's not true. And a lot of our people have had their own businesses and have had their businesses centered around African people and are taking care of themselves perfectly fine. Why should we heal from pathological anxiety? Healing from pathological anxiety will allow us to no longer be affected by some of the scripts that Europeans tell us. Scripts like you have to work for Europeans in order to be successful, or this um, is the proper way. If you heal from a script like you have to work for Europeans to be successful, it'll be easier for you to not work with or for white people, um, and easier for you to work with and for Black people because you know and you believe that you can be successful without European people. Healing from pathological anxiety will also allow us to grow in important development areas as well. How can we heal from pathological anxiety? We have to address our fears and find the key dangers. We also have to address these fears and find ways to reassure ourselves that do not hurt us or hurt our people. How I'm healing from pathological anxiety. I'm healing from pathological anxiety by reminding myself of the tools that I have access to and believing uh, that I can use those tools in order to figure out a potential difficult situation. And that's it. Thanks for watching.